Attention, you're listening to the Todd Huff Radio Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk radio. Be advised that the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. Here's your conservative, but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Well, that is right, my friends. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. It is good to be back. Pacers lost game 2 last night. I don't feel as happy about this series as I did on Friday. But look, we're playing a really, really good basketball team. And, hey, that's the way the old cookie crumbles sometimes. Back here for Game 3 in Indianapolis on Wednesday. We will be headed up to that game. So looking forward to Game 3. Friends, today, though, there's lots of things that have happened over the weekend as it pertains to ICE raids in the city of Los Angeles. There's a lot that's coming to a head here, and I want to unpack this as best I can today. So that's the direction we're going to go. There's other things, of course, in the news as well, but I want to primarily talk about this today. There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot that's gone into getting us where we are. There's going to be a lot involved in getting us from where we are to where we need to be. And there's going to be, as we've witnessed in Los Angeles over the weekend and elsewhere, a whole lot of opposition to merely enforcing the law. Merely enforcing the law. So we'll get to that today, my friends, in due course. Program brought to you in part by Red, White, and Brand. Friends, if you own a business, if you're at a church and you do vacation Bible school t-shirts, anything like that that would have a logo or a message on a product, Red, White, and Brand is here to help you get your logo on almost anything, from trade show booths to apparel to promotional products, you name it. Red, White, and Brand can help you with that. You can find out more information at redwhiteandbrand.com. Redwhiteandbrand.com is the website. Promo code Todd will save you 10% off your first order there, and you get free shipping on orders placed online. Redwhiteandbrand.com. Check it out. Promo code Todd saves you 10%. Your logo on almost anything, my friends. All right, so let us, where to start with an issue like this? This what's happening in Los Angeles. And I guess the simple solution or the simple summary would be that the Trump administration is choosing, for the first time in recent memory, in modern memory, to actually engage in mass deportation efforts. And so when you target areas of the country that are led by people on the left, Democrats, the radical left, you're going to be met with opposition. Opposition in the form of protest is one thing. Opposition in the form of interfering with your responsibility and duty to enforce the law is, of course, another. And we've crossed that threshold. The protests ceased to be protests and have started to become riots. There's fires in the streets. There's rocks and pieces of concrete being thrown at law enforcement. There is direct interference between the public and the ICE officers when it comes to ICE being able to do their job. And so Trump has effectively bypassed Newsom and has called up the National Guard to bring peace to the streets of Los Angeles. This, of course, has been met with opposition as well, because the left, the Democrats like Mayor Karen Bass of Los Angeles would say, look, this only makes the problem worse. This is not something that is helpful to the situation. But of course, what's law enforcement supposed to do here? Let the opposition stop them and they simply go home and refuse to enforce said law. So that's where we are. That's where we are. The left is insisting on calling these protests, which undoubtedly there are some things that have happened that are merely protests. But by and large, there have been many of these protests that have turned into riots. And I feel the need really quickly here to do something I've done for almost 10 years now, which is when a protest becomes a riot, just to help our friends on the left. You know, if you're at a protest, my friends, you're carrying signs, you are not interfering with the flow of traffic, you are making yourself, your ideas, your opinions known in a public space. Again, carrying signs, maybe chanting things, maybe engaging in other forms of political theater. You are completely justified in doing that. However, when the first fire is set in the streets, you've ceased attending a peaceful protest and are now attending a riot. When you see people jumping on top of cop cars, you are no longer at a peaceful protest. You are a member of someone who is witnessing a riot. When the first rocks and pieces of concrete and other items go flying through the air, targeting law enforcement officers, you have ceased attending a peaceful protest and are now witnessing or perhaps participating in a riot. This is not something that you have the right to do. You have the right to peaceably protest. You do not have the right to engage in rioting activities. Fires, looting, assault, physical confrontations, rocks flying through the air, dancing on top of cop cars, fires in the street, whatever. This is what constitutes a riot or illegal activities, or at the bare minimum, not a peaceful protest. Now, I understand, too, that there could be people engaging in riotous behavior at a rally, at a protest, and not everyone is participating. But there comes a point when the average person would look at what's happening in a particular situation and say, the things that I'm witnessing out here in their totality now constitute a riot. And there's actually a clip. It doesn't do me any good to show you the clip because, of course, you can't see the clip. I am talking to you over the radio airwaves. I am talking to you over your particular podcast download. I can't show you this currently. That might change as we put the video on hold for several reasons here. But if we had video, potentially you could see it if you were watching the video version of the podcast. But so it doesn't do me any good to show you this. I'll just describe what I saw. There was an individual who was, I believe, on CNN. It could have been in MSNBC, but I think it was CNN. And the individual was literally talking about a peaceful protest, and the B-roll footage, the footage of just the event that was taking place, was playing, kind of side by side with the person speaking. Again, I think it was CNN. And the person was talking about this peaceable protest, and there was literally fires burning in the streets. I think it was an automobile on fire. And so this is, again, how the game is played. And so now we're having this debate over what a riot is, what a peaceful protest is, what the role of the federal government is. And then you have people, there's an individual running for Congress in Illinois, Kat Abugazela, I believe is how I say her name. I've got a clip that I'm going to play from her, how she wants to describe what's happening with the use of these ICE raids. We will get there, my friends, in due course today. But the bottom line, again, I like to go back in time to set the scene for where we are. We've had wide open borders in this country for, well, again, you go back to the Reagan administration. We've been through this extensively on this program. I know For those of you who have been listening for some time, this is going to be repeating myself, so forgive me, but not everybody knows this. And I would say we also could use a reminder of how we got here. Number one, back during the Reagan years, we had similar, now not to this, the size and scope that they are now, but we had similar problems. There was illegal immigration coming across the southern border, and they negotiated, the Congress and the president, Reagan at the time, they negotiated a deal. And the deal was there was going to be amnesty. There was amnesty given. There were people that had crossed into this country illegally that we determined that we were going to say, fine, they're going to be citizens of the United States, but in return, we're going to secure the border. We're going to say, okay, if you're here now, you're a citizen, or what, you're not going to be deported. You're going to have some legal status placed upon you. You're going to be granted amnesty, but we're going to stop the problem, right? We're going to stop the root cause of the problem. You've heard me talk about this in a number of ways, but I think the best way to think about this is, again, if you're on a boat, if you're out fishing in the pond, and your boat begins to take on water, you have a leak in the boat. The very first thing you must do is stop the leak. Stopping the leak is not the same as determining what you do with the water that's on the boat once the leak is actually fixed. And so you plug the hole, you plug the hole, you get the leak to stop. So now we've got no more new water coming onto the boat in this metaphor. Now we say, what do we do with the water? Now, what's interesting is the law has already spoken on this. There is existing law on the books. The left, I will give the left credit here. The left is masterful at ignoring things that they don't want to hear. The left has an unbelievable ability to ignore existing law. The left has, if they don't like it, the left has an unbelievable ability to not listen to anything that they don't want to agree with. I can cite gay marriage for this. They lost time and time and time and time and time again on the issue of same-sex marriage. Over and over and over again, they kept fighting for it. Suddenly, the Supreme Court finds hidden in the Constitution a right to marry whomever you choose, whatever gender they are, whatever gender you are, you can get married. So says the Supreme Court. The White House was lit up in rainbow colors. You remember this back when Obama was president. Over and done with. Conservatives just said, well, we tried to fight this. We lost. What do? Conservatives go about their business. The left fought. It's incredible. And that's almost the psychology behind it. Even as someone who watches, of course, I'm interested in the outcomes of these things, but I also watch this from a distance, and I think it's unfortunate, but it's also just fascinating, the mindset between liberals, I would say the radical left, and conservatives. Conservatives will fight for an issue until they lose. The left will fight for an issue in spite of losing many times until they get it their way, and then we're just told that the issue is solved, and suddenly conservatives just go along with this. It is absolutely unbelievable for me to witness this, but it has happened. It happens all the time. We fight about an issue until the left wins, and at such time when the left wins, we're told that it's now been settled. Well, why isn't it settled now? There are laws on the books. What Trump is doing, make no mistake about this, what Trump is doing, his administration is doing, is trying to enforce the law. I'll go back again, as I've done before on this program, back to the term of Obama, his presidency, when Jan Brewer was the governor of the great state of Arizona, Republican Jan Brewer. She was trying to enforce immigration law. Why was she trying to enforce immigration law as a governor of a state? Well, because her state, of course, is a border state. Her state was suffering immensely because of illegal immigration, and the federal government was doing nothing to stop it. So at this point, remember, there's two things. First is to stop the leak, if you will, on the analogy. Stop the leak. Stop the people coming across the border. At that particular point in time, that's really all that they were asking for. Don't make our situation worse. Stop allowing people to come into this country. Do something serious about trying to stop the flow of new people across the border. It is a burden. It is it's something that costs us money and resources. It's dangerous. The administration did nothing. The administration did nothing. So the state said, fine, we will enforce the laws on the books that you're refusing to enforce, federal government. This ends up in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court tells the state of Arizona, it's not your job to enforce federal statutes. The federal government has to do this. So now here's Arizona trying to solve a legitimate problem. There's nothing they can do. The Supreme Court says you're not responsible for securing the border. In fact, you can't secure the border. That's the job of the federal government. And oh, by the way, the federal government is not going to do a diddly darn thing about it. And that was the scenario. I mean, you realize how literally insane that this sounds. We know what the law is on the books. You're not supposed to enforce it. The federal government's going to enforce it. We know that they're not going to enforce it, so deal with it. I mean, it's just crazy talk, right? Just absolutely insane talk. So, it has been firmly established. My takeaway, the relevance of that discussion is to say it's been firmly established that these things are under the purview, the jurisdiction of the United States federal government. So, Trump campaigned in 2024. He talked about this issue. He talked exactly about, none of this is a surprise. None of this is a surprise. In fact, the left was campaigning against Trump on this. The left was saying that Trump wants to deport people from this country who are brown or who don't look like him or who are from, another part of the world. This is Trump being xenophobic and Trump being racist. This is examples, they say, of what Trump is trying to do to make America whiter or whatever. Whatever the case may be, that's how this was discussed during the campaign. The American people, however, are tired of the shenanigans. The American people are tired of watching what has happened to this country because of illegal immigration. They're tired of witnessing people lose their lives. Women who have been assaulted and raped and murdered by some of these folks who come across the border illegally. They are tired of gang violence increasing because Tren de Aragua or MS-13 gangs are setting up shop here in the United States of America, whether it be in the suburbs of Denver, Colorado, taking over whole apartment complexes, or wherever it might be. The American people are sick of that. They are tired of the fentanyl epidemic that we have in this nation. They are tired of the drugs, the drug trafficking, the human trafficking. They've had enough. They're sick of these despicable things happening while the previous administration literally did nothing. These things have been happening in some way, shape, manner, or form for roughly 50 years, with some exceptions to where the flow of illegal immigrants over the border might have slowed or reduced dramatically, which would have happened when Trump was building the wall during his first term. Turns out walls work. Walls worked, by the way, in this studio. The studio last night. The last time I was here, when I went to bed, the walls in the home studio had held their position. They kept the warm summer air out and the cool air from within inside this studio in. They kept any sort of creatures out. We've seen on this property recently a little group of coyotes running through here. They kept the coyotes out and the raccoons out and the squirrels out, and the people inside the walls were kept safe and sound. It's remarkable that the walls worked. In fact, there's also a door. There's a door into this this studio, this home studio. And if you want to get outside the wall, you go through the door. The wall, it's amazing. The walls keep people who aren't supposed to be in here out. They keep the atmosphere inside the walls inside and the atmosphere outside the walls outside. It's a remarkable thing. You use the door to get in and out. It's a big, beautiful door. And it works. It's crazy. I've heard the left tell me walls don't work. I'd like an example of how walls haven't worked. When walls don't work, they cite people that are trying to get ladders and other devices to climb over the walls. To which I want to say, well, why did they get the ladder if the wall didn't do something to prevent them just walking across? Of course, there can be people who find ways over the wall, but it's less people that can find their way over the wall than people who can find their way through an area that doesn't have a wall. By the way, we're also, as we've always talked about on this program, we're not just talking about putting up a wall and thinking that's it, nothing else to do here. There's other things that you should be doing between using surveillance, using manpower to monitor what's happening, and also be intelligent and understanding some of the techniques that the left, I'm used to saying the left, that the illegal immigrants use to try to get around or underneath maybe the border. Maybe there's tunnels. You got to find these tunnels. I mean, the bottom line is it's not a cure-all. It's not an end-all. But a wall is a part of it. Why would it not be part of it? I mean, it's crazy. Name a place that doesn't have walls, that doesn't have some sort of barrier. I mean, when they do these riots, they oftentimes will burn things in certain places to block off streets, to make it hard for the National Guard troops or law enforcement to get down a certain area that the rioters have kind of taken as their home base, as their base of operations. All those obstacles make it harder to get. I can't believe I have to say some of these things, not for you, but for the radicals out there among us. But this is the background. This is how we've gotten to where we are. I'm going to continue talking about this into the next segment and then talk about what's being done and how Trump is trying to enforce the law. Before I do that, though, my friends, do you know where your money goes after you spend it? If you are afraid of what that answer might mean, if you cringe when you think about that answer, it's time to check out Freedom Marketplace. We built this platform to connect conservatives like you with businesses that share your values and your principles, businesses that refuse to support leftist causes, businesses that refuse to support the chaos and the pandemonium that's happening in Los Angeles right now. So it's free to use. There's no login required. It's all about keeping your dollars aligned with your principles. Visit freedommarketplace.net today. That's freedommarketplace.net. Liberty and business for all. Time out here, my friends. Quick time out. Back in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. We've been trying to lay the groundwork on how we got here with this issue of illegal immigration, what the left wants you to think about this issue, how they've done everything in their power to avoid enforcing the law. And that, by the way, that needs to be hammered home. Nothing, and I mean nothing changes the fact as to what the law is. The law states that if you are here illegally, if you do not have permission currently to be in this country, which can take a couple of different forms, and I want to, you could have a work permit or whatever. You could be a citizen. You can be someone who's got legal status but not a citizen. I mean, there's different forms that this can take, but whatever those are. We're just going to say legal status. Legal status. If you don't have legal status, then the law says that you can and should be deported. This is, listen, this is not complicated. I don't know why. I don't know why we don't start by firmly establishing this. The left wants to relitigate this. The left wants to argue about what the law is, or what the law should be, rather. It's very clear what the law is. If you are here and you are not legally here, whatever that means specifically for the certain types of legal statuses, or at least legal visiting status, you are not supposed to be here. Pure and simple. Now, I'll take you back as well, even a year or so ago, back sometime in 2024. The Democrats running blue cities finally began to admit that the illegal immigration was causing major financial stress on their cities. You might remember a lot of people that are mayor of blue cities coming out and saying this. In fact, they had to rework their budgets because the cost of illegal immigration was causing havoc on their cities, and so they had to then rework other parts of the budget, make cuts in other areas. See, that's what happens with cities and states. Cities and states don't have a money-making magical machine that they can just press a button and create money out of thin air. That's what the federal government has. By the way, totally related subject, I won't go down this path for long, but this is precisely why the one and only entity responsible for inflation, as pointed out repeatedly by economists who understand the economy and who are not Keynesian economists, by Milton Friedman in particular, one of my favorite all-time economists, Milton Friedman. The only people who can create inflation, the only group that can create inflation is the federal government. It's because of that power to be able to produce money. That's the way that this works. Cities can't do that. Cities have to work inside the world of reality. And so when things became too much of a burden, they had to make changes to their budget. When illegal immigration was putting so much of a strain on the way the city functioned, and this included cities like New York City, like Los Angeles, like many others, they came out and said this back in 2024. I mean, all the evidence is here, my friends. And it is remarkable for me. The left wants this to be about things that people have a visceral reaction to. They want it to be about emotion. They want it to be about accusing the side that wants to enforce immigration law. They want it to be a conversation about whether or not you're racist. Well, why else would you want to deport someone other than the fact that they're a different race than you, a different nationality than you, they speak a different language than you? That's crazy. I think that that's actually saying a lot more about them than it says about me. That has nothing at all to do with my desire to see immigration law carried out and enforced. The reason that we need to deport people who are not here legally is for many reasons, one of which I just laid out. There is an additional financial strain pressed upon, or I should say created by, or added to by illegal immigrants. It's just like anything else. If you have more people that are using your city's transit, more people using your city's infrastructure, there is more wear and tear. It is more of a cost. This is very, very easy to understand for those who want to understand this. It also opens up the door for people to abuse some of our welfare programs, which has been documented to have happened. The left wants you to believe that this never happens, that the government is on top of this, that they're managing this to just profound levels of efficiency, weeding out all types of corruption. But we all know better. We've all been down to the license branch. We've all been to the post office. By the way, I tried to go to the post office on Saturday. You may tell what the post office does here in my little community. There's a little post office here. This post office, I kid you not, what are the hours, Oz? 9 to 11:30 weekdays? No. 8 to 11. 8 to 11. Then they shut it down. They close for, I believe, an hour. Now, you can still get in the lobby, but if you need to go in there and you need to see the person behind the counter, if you need to ship a package and hand something, if you want to mail a letter, you can drop it in the drop box. But if you need to hand a package, something that won't fit in one of those big blue mailboxes or whatever, if you need to hand a package to a person and you're there at 11:01, you're not going to see anybody until noon. They shut it down. They shut it down for an hour. Then the thing closes, I don't know, 3 o'clock. Is it 3? So if you're a working person and you work from 8 to 5, there ain't no way you're getting yourself inside this post office. It was opened on Saturday. The reason I know, you know why I know this? Because Oz Oz had sold something on, what's that thing you use, Oz? Etsy. She's got an Etsy shop. She sold something. She said, hey, can you drop this at the post office? I said, no problem. No problem. I go to the post office. It's like 11. I don't know what time it is. We thought it was open until noon, but it was closed on the weekend. On the weekend, it's only open 9 to 11. It's open 2 hours on Saturday, 9 to 11. I was dropping something off on my way somewhere else. I thought I was within the time frame. Stupid thing was open for 2 hours. We've all dealt with this. This is the sort of thing you deal with when you're dealing with, that's one tiny example. My point here is to say the inefficiencies and the lack of using the lowest amount, or I should say the using of the lowest amount of common sense possible to determine these sorts of things is how the government does it. We've watched our nation be, just run into the ground. Deficits of $36+ trillion. We've watched this. We've watched open borders. We've watched all sorts of problems take place here. And it is a lot to take in. It's a lot to take in. And we know, we're not idiots, that letting people come across the border opens ourselves up to a lot of potential problems. Not to mention crime, which absolutely happens. It's by no way an indictment of every person who comes across the border. I'm not suggesting that they're all violent criminals. I am telling you that they're all breaking the law. Now, the left is now out there saying that that's not a violation of the law, which, again, let all that sink in. To come into this country illegally, I saw a guy on CNN with Scott Jennings. I think his name's Bakari Sellers, I want to say. He said crossing into the country illegally, listen carefully to my words, crossing into the country illegally is not against the law. Then why must we say illegally? That word means against the law. What in the world are these people talking about? It's not a criminal violation. You're not going to go to prison for it. Now, if you repeat that, you could, but it is a civil crime for which you can be and should be deported, which is the whole point. The whole point. So here we are. They have ignored the law. Whoever's been running this country for the past half century or whatever, they've been ignoring the law. They've not enforced the law. They've simply let this problem fester and grow, and now this thing is out of control. The number of people who are here illegally, the number of crimes that have been committed that would never have been committed, people who, well, if they weren't here, people who no longer are, people who have a history now of being a victim of a crime or even lost their life to a crime, to someone that should not have been here. All these things, the numbers of drugs that have come across, human trafficking, this is gangs, terrible stuff. This problem has to be fixed. That's what Trump's trying to do. Friends, I got to take a break here. Want to talk to you really quickly. If you are in sales, do you have a system? Are you where you want to be? Because whether you are struggling to close deals or just want to sharpen your skills, Matt Easton and Easton University can help you. So they have a sales training system, a coaching system that I think is one of the best that I've ever seen. I've been involved with a lot of this stuff, and I think that Easton University is top notch. You can check it out by going to toddhuffshow.com/Easton. And if you sign up to become a student there, you will get a free welcome call as a thank you gift to listeners of this program. You'll get a welcome call from Matt Easton himself to kind of analyze your situation and get you started. So toddhuffshow.com/Easton. I have to take a break, my friends. Back in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. So, just laying the groundwork here for how we got to this particular situation with illegal immigration. Now we are deporting folks. This is, again, something that's been on the books. This has been the law for a long time in this country. Why haven't we done this before? Well, the answer is obvious. We haven't done this before because the people in charge didn't want to. And why didn't they want to? Well, you can fill in your own answer here here as you, however you find appropriate. But there's definitely some questions that have to be answered pertaining to why people in power, the ones in power who could enforce this law, why they didn't enforce it. Because it was creating an unsustainable problem, my friends. And it did create an unsustainable problem. And so now here we are. This is to the point where this can no longer be ignored. Trump has said that they are going to be doing massive deportation. None of this is a surprise. None of this is new. The only thing that's new, again, is that no one has enforced this law previously. Trump hasn't made this up. Trump didn't create ICE. Trump didn't create these new laws. Trump is simply enforcing the laws on the books. Now, it's from this point on that this is emotionalized quite a bit. Now, I'm on record as saying, and I still believe this, by the way, or I still understand this. I understand why people would want to come to this country. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I understand why people who are in another country, another part of the world, want to come to the United States of America. I also understand that simply wanting to be here does not entitle someone to be here. Now, this is where this gets really emotional, because people say, gee whiz, Todd, can you not see the conditions of the people in these, for these other countries around the world? Ironically, if you say too many bad things about these countries, you're called a racist or a xenophobe for pointing out these things, but you need to point it out enough to give them justification, at least in the minds of the left, to want to leave those places. And I do. I understand. I understand as much as I can understand that there are some people in some bad circumstances. I understand that America is a special place. See, this to me is what makes it extra ironic, because the left talks about this place as though it's the worst place on planet Earth. They blame America for all of the world's problems. I don't know how you can reconcile that way of thinking. If America is the worst place on the planet, if America is the home of racism and everything else, then why would we even want people who were going to be victimized by this racist mentality to come here? Why would we even want that to be the case? But see, none of this stuff makes sense. It's just emotionalized. I understand why people would want to come here. I do. Understanding why they would want to come here and say that they should be able to are two totally different things. There are reasons why we don't have just wide open, come as you will immigration. There's lots of reasons for this. There's the reason, one of the things I didn't mention that I should have mentioned, I mentioned criminals coming across the border. There's also terrorists that's come across the southern border. These things are legitimate problems. We are allowing enemy nations, enemy groups, terrorist organizations to basically have a pathway into this country. That's what's happened over time. That has been shut down, severely hampering their ability to get into this country unscathed or without detection. That part has been stopped. And so now we look at this and we say we have people who are here illegally that were not supposed to be here. And so Trump has started to say you can self-deport. If you self-deport, you may be able to get back into this country at some point. But if we actually remove you, you're going to have a problem getting back in, because you've proven that you would never agree to following the laws of this country, which, by the way, we have absolute sovereign rights to be able to determine what our laws and rules are for coming into this country. This country is the most generous in the world. We've been through this, accepting roughly 1 million legal immigrants every year. which is much more than other countries, number one. Of course, it's not as many that people want to come here, but let's be honest, we are not capable of taking on everybody in the world. That's ridiculous. What's better to do is to export American ideas, American principles, American values, so that other nations would begin to benefit from the things that made America great. That's really the ticket to making this a better scenario for everybody, not to put a guilt trip on the United States for not giving everyone here a free pass to stay as long as they want, to create an emotional situation to where we can't say no when you've broken our laws, when you have put strain on our system, made demands on the American people. We can certainly tell you no. I'm out of time this segment. More on the other side of the hour, my friends. Thanks for listening, SDG.